We are back, another episode of the Gold Standard here on Fox 19 Now with Charlie Goldsmith. I'm Joe Daneman. Charlie leaves for spring training on Super Bowl Sunday. He'll be at the Reds complex on Monday starting work. Jeremy Rao and myself will join him a week later, but you get a week head start before us. So I'm going to start here. Pitchers and catchers report next week. The full team gets there the following week. And we know some of these star players might show up a little bit early. So who are you most looking forward to talking to as the Reds start spring training?
Hunter Greene. His mindset, his approach, what he learned from a terrible start against the Dodgers in the playoffs last year, what he's doing to stay healthier in 2026 than he's been throughout the bulk of his career. And then just if there's a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Yeah. I wonder if he might kind of have that mentality this season after what was really the most disappointing year of his career.
Okay, so I was asked a question this week about Hunter Greene. I'm curious to ask this question to you. Do you think he's penciled in as the opening day starter, or should Terry Francona consider someone else?
I think it's the most likely situation. Let's see how these guys look in camp, the shape they all show up in, just not necessarily the results, but kind of the eye test, how they look. Hunter would be the favorite there. Double in when you take into the fact that, and this was kind of one of my favorite quotes I got all last season, I was talking to Andrew Abbott, kind of went right after Hunter Greene's complete game shutout in the final week of the season. I was talking to him about Hunter. And Andrew kind of just very passively, he said he was talking, and he's our number one. And I said, wait, Andrew, you could be the number one. You're an all-star. And he says, that's not me, that's Hunter. And he meant this is the biggest compliment. The weight that Hunter carries with him, the approach, the what he represents.
Right.
That spotlight's on Hunter. Andrew doesn't even really want it. So that is another reason why Hunter probably will be the guy.
That's why I said it. I think it means more to Hunter to start opening day. I don't think the word ego is the right word, but I think that would massage Hunter's ego. I think it would bother Hunter if they chose someone else to start opening day. I don't think it would bother Andrew Abbott if they chose Hunter Greene to start opening day. So I think that kind of takes care of itself for the Reds. But you're right. We'll see what happens during spring training. And if everybody makes it out healthy, everybody's sharp, we'll see what they do. But I think Hunter should be the guy, all things considered. Okay, we've now had a week to digest. Eugenio Suarez is back in Cincinnati. I asked you the night of if this raises the floor and the ceiling of the Reds in the NL Central. As you digest it a week later, do you feel like the Reds are a legit contender to win the NL Central?
Yes. Kind of now my take on the Reds in the Central that I'm going to be going forward with the season is that the Reds are going to be as good as their defense is. Suarez really, and you talk about ceiling, but Suarez raises the bar and the floor of the offense in such a significant way. He almost raises that floor because of his upside, because, once every 10 times he's going to hit the ball, hard and far.
Yeah.
But the Reds already last year, there were long stretches of the season where the theme was if they play clean, they win. They beat themselves, they lose.
That's right.
Suarez obviously slots in as your DH. So now Ellie's defense at short. Now you're looking at more Sal Stewart at first base, a relatively new position for him, something he has all the tools to play well, but something he has to figure out. Is there another step Steer can take in left? Marte, his first full year in the outfield, can he kind of get his reads down and become more consistent the way he tracks the ball? If all of those things happen, I think the Reds will win the division. If many or most of them don't, I think the Reds will be around where they were last year.
Two more Reds topics before we jump to the Bengals. Matt McLain's going to be in the lineup. He's going to be this team's starting second baseman. Everybody's hoping for a bounce-back year. I think everybody's expecting a bounce-back year. The one question that hasn't been asked about Matt McLain is this: where does he slot in the opening day batting lineup? Now, that's all going to be flushed out. I get it during spring training, but, on a podcast, you can be somewhat hot-takey. What would you do with Matt McLain right now before the Reds go to spring training, looking at him and where he should be in the Reds lineup?
Coming off a down year and plus factoring in the other right-handed talent they have in the lineup, I think what makes the most sense and what I would expect would be starting in the bottom half, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
I think he is a perfect number 2 hitter, and I would expect that if McLain has the season that the Reds are expecting, then by the time we get to June, July, he ends up at least 5, maybe 2.
Sure.
And then I think ideally they'd like him to be the number 2 hitter between Friedel and Ellie by the end of the year, because McLain does have the combination of polished old school hitter, 20-plus homer pop. He's who Terry Francona believes is the best base runner on the team. All of that you like, but he has to just go do it. Let's get him those reps.
The two biggest names of the Reds organization who will be participating in the World Baseball Classic are Eugenio Suarez and Edwin Arroyo, a guy that a lot of people inside the Reds organization are very high on. Shoulder injury guy, coming back from that. What's your biggest thought on the Reds, their players, and the World Baseball Classic?
So first of all, and I went back last night through all of the content around Eugenio Suarez breaking the Venezuelan home run record in 2019. That's kind of the thing he's most famous for doing with the Reds in his 49-homer season. And just the emotion and the pride he takes in that, and I won't get political, but through what at the time was a very tumultuous time in Venezuela. Yep. Obviously now there's been a lot going on. Being able to have that stage and opportunity for your home country, we've heard from Eugenio in the past talk about what that is and what that means to him. Edwin Arroyo is really interesting. And as a player, he's interesting, and maybe we can talk about him sometime over the course of the spring, but and I won't get in the weeds, kind of the big story about the World Baseball Classic has been insurance issues.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this?
I have.
All of these top guys with a bit of an injury history haven't been able to get their contracts insured. So the two most prominent ones, Francisco Lindor and Carlos Correa, can't play. Those are the two shortstops for Team Puerto Rico. So what happened last week, they both announced they can't play, even though they've already committed. Puerto Rico needs a shortstop. Edwin Arroyo, no pressure, kid. Go get him. And Puerto Rico is hosting the pool play. So all of these expectations on this really good team, you lose your two stars, and he's like the Jake Browning, Joe Flacco of this team, except obviously he's better than Browning and he's not as established as Flacco. Go play, go be our guy. I mean, that's an interesting story.
But what a runway for him to show what he can do and what a lot of people inside the Reds organization expect him to do. Last question on the Reds. So, World Baseball Classic, 1 out of 10. How excited are you to watch?
Oh, I love anything to turn on that's exciting with the talent and the lineups.
Yeah.
It's a great event with great talents, with personalities and stars who I'm invested in. So it's been something that baseball is really invested in, and a perfect example of the more you invest in stuff, people still get excited about baseball in that way. There's still just as much interest as there's ever been.
I'm excited that you're excited about it. Not a lot gets you excited, so I'm going to put myself at about an 8. And then the big games, the big moments, that ratchets it up to 10. When you think about Shohei and Mike Trout and that at-bat they had last World Baseball Classic was off the charts. It was one of those moments you're texting friends like, find this at-bat and watch this because it's 1 in a million.
One more for you. You know Dusty Baker's managing.
Who's he managing for?
Team Nicaragua, who, to be honest, isn't that good. But they've got Dusty. Like, what a story.
That's outstanding. All right, Dusty, go Team Nicaragua. Okay, now the Bengals. I did a podcast with the great Dan Horde this week, and I'm going to steal some of the topics he asked me to now ask you, and I'll give you my answer after yours. The first question he asked me was, what percentage chance do you give the Bengals of returning to the playoffs next season?
I think I'll pick them to do that, 60%.
Ooh.
I'm not buying the second half resurgence on defense, but I think I saw enough building blocks on the roster to make it feel realistic to fill out a solid enough starting lineup, even for a team that struggled in the draft and free agency. So I'll go 60%.
Dan and I landed on 85%.
How about that?
And here's why we got to 85%. It's all about Joe Burrow and how this team plays when he plays. And the contingency was, if Joe Burrow plays 17 games, and I've done this before, where I said if Joe Burrow plays 17 games, I guarantee they make the playoffs. I won't go guarantee, but I'll go 85% because the Bengals are 10-3. In his last 13 starts, they win games when Joe Burrow plays. If Joe Burrow plays all 17 games next year, I'm very confident the Bengals go back to the playoffs. Okay, what do the Bengals need to do in free agency? And need is capitalized. What do they have to do in free agency?
Here's how I'll answer this. Like, obviously, this isn't how life works. If you could only make one move in free agency or in the offseason, if you could only do one thing.
Just one.
I would get a veteran linebacker.
Yeah.
Now, that's not going to be the guy who upgrades the upside of your defense. That's not going to be the guy who makes all these plays. But literally, I could show you my notebooks. I chart the splash positives and splash negatives every week, and then who's at fault. And it's linebacker, 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 linebacker. That's what it was last week for the negative plays. Teams were waking up on Monday morning and saying, how do we exploit Demetrius Knight and Derek Carter? Now, I expect them each to be better in year 2 so much that my plan has a runway for either of them to grow into a starting role. But you need someone to just settle in and stabilize that defense.
So give me a couple of names, because when I looked at the top free agents, you're going to see the two Devons. Devin Bush, Devin Lloyd. If you need to check your phone for breaking news,
No,
right
it's
ahead.
the spreadsheet.
I'll keep filibustering. Oh, he's getting the spreadsheet out for the linebackers. Okay, the two big ones are going to be Devin Bush and Devin Lloyd, but I'm guessing they might be too rich for the Bengals.
And you don't really need to go to that level, especially because when you look at veteran linebackers with leadership experience, with winning experience, who are good tacklers, and how about for a little extra credit, have specific connections to coaches on the Bengals staff. You can look at Caden Ellis. You can look at Alex Singleton. You can look at Alex Anzalone. You can look at Eric Wilson. Less connections, but you can go with Leo Chenal. And then there are 5 more sleepers, sleepers who I would have on that list. So Ellis is my favorite, but you've got 2 guys in Ellis and Anzalone who were drafted by Mike Hodges, the Bengals linebackers coach, and who will get $5 to $8 million. So you've got answers to get that done.
I said they have to get a Sunday-ready edge, because the Bengals, we think, might take a swing on another edge with the number 10 overall pick. They've done that with Myles Murphy. The return hasn't been great. He's starting to develop the second half of his 3rd season. Shamar Stewart is just an incomplete. We don't know at this point what Shamar is going to be. But if you're going to go back to the playoffs, and the expectation is once you get to the playoffs, you're going to win playoff games, at least try to, you got to have somebody that you know can make plays on the edge. You can't just take another swing in the draft. To me, that was my biggest need. Linebacker was second, but if you're going capital need, for me it was finding a guy who's proven he can be a difference maker on the edge on Sundays. Next question. Unlikely, bold move the Bengals could make that fires up the fan base.
I mean, this is my thing, and I've been joking that I have to put a fine in the jar every time I mention the idea of a slot playmaking safety hybrid. Making your biggest free agent spend for someone at that position, and then also drafting Caleb Downs in the 1st round. Boy, that defense is starting to cook. And you would have to do things like find a 2nd-round edge who could contribute, and find not even the next Trey Hendrickson, the next like Larry Ogunjobi in that range to be able to give you enough pass rush at that spot on a discount. But if you have your outside corners who are studs, and then slots and safeties who can move around and do this, do that, like now you're cooking, and I'd be pretty excited about that defense.
I said signing Chase Brown, DJ Turner, Dax Hill, all to contract extensions in the same offseason to prove you're going to do things differently. Because Duke Tobin came down to the big press conference, and that was partly, I think, to take accountability for what happened, but also maybe to signify they want to try to do this offseason a little bit differently. And maybe that's be more aggressive in free agency. I think that will be the case. But if you really want to tell the fan base we're going to do something different, we're not going to do what we did with Jamar. We're not going to do what we did with T and wait too long. And then these guys start to price even higher than we expected. Bold move, fire up the fan base, sign all 3 guys. What's the Bengals' motto always been? It's been draft, develop, retain.
What they want to do.
They drafted those 3 guys. They developed all 3 guys. They all deserve to be paid. Pay them in Cincinnati now. Fire up your fan base. 2 more Bengals questions. Okay, other than the team's record, what was the biggest disappointment of the 2025 season? I'll go first to give yourself time to think, okay? I said the Joe Flacco story should have been the best story in the NFL. Getting him mid-season, 40 years old, he's in a car driving to Cincinnati, and Zach Taylor's going over a game plan. And by the second half of his first game, you said, okay, there's something here. He delivered the second best moment of the year, beating the Steelers. The best moment was Thanksgiving night, Joe Burrow's comeback. This should have been one of the best stories in the NFL, but the Bengals didn't win enough games. They only won 1 game with Joe Flacco at quarterback, and that's not his fault for the way he played for the majority of the games. This should have been one of the best stories, if not the, in the NFL. And the Bengals blew it because they didn't win enough. What's yours?
How about Jake Browning? A guy who
Good one.
who honestly had his best training camp with the Bengals was this year. A guy who I wrote a story in August about how the Bengals are calling him a top 32 quarterback in the league. You know, don't play this year because, you know, Burrow's going to play all 17, but then you'll have the opportunity to be a free agent, now a restricted free agent, but have the chance to kind of get your first money, get maybe a starting opportunity. Now Jake can really launch his career, and then to play 3 of the worst games I've ever seen from a quarterback Now, Flacco was a huge success, but they were in that position because the guy they thought they had set, Jake Browning, kind of failed them.
I'll go first on this one again to give yourself a chance to think. I love the Jake Browning answer. Hottest Bengals take. Here's my hot Bengals take. Jamar Chase, next year, for the first time in more than 80 years in the NFL, will become the first player to win multiple Triple Crowns.
How about that?
He won the Triple Crown 2 years ago. If he would have played all 17 games in 2025, he would have led the league in receptions. Yardage was down, touchdowns were down. He played, 8 games without Joe Burrow? That's going to happen no matter who's playing quarterback, even though Joe Flacco was throwing him the ball more than 20 times a game. That all goes up in 2026, and Jamar Chase, for the first time since the 1940s, Jerry Rice never did this, Cooper Kupp never did this, Randy Moss, do it twice. Triple Crown winner twice is my hot, bold take for the Bengals in 2026. What's your hottest Bengals take?
I don't know that I believe this, but I'm going with it. The Bengals have the best rushing game in the NFL next season. They were top 5. So, we don't talk about it, but they were top 5, top 10 in a few metrics, but top 5 in so many areas this year. And they weren't playing with leads like we hear it from Zach all the time. The best way to establish the run is to be in good game scripts, just like they did at Baltimore on Thanksgiving. They then ran out that clock down the stretch. You got San Francisco in 2023. They did this at Baltimore in 21. More of those types of games, that's really when you make the leap in terms of becoming the best, most productive rushing attack. And the Bengals weren't playing those types of games 95% of the time next year. So if they're better, they're going to get to ice the game out more. The fact that if you bring Reisner back, it is a good line, plus you have the 1-2 punch with Brown and Pirine. I could see this being a great rushing attack because the scheme is there.
I like what you said. I'm not sure I believe this, but I'll say it. I kind of think that's where I am with my bold take on Jamar Chase. I'm not sure I believe that's going to happen. As long as Sam Darnold's throwing passes in Seattle, he's going to spam throws to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he's going to catch 1,800 yards. Dan said maybe that Jamar flirts with 2,000 in 17 games.
I thought you were going to go MVP. That's where I thought.
Oh, for Jamar? Whoa, that's hot. That's white hot.
He's really good, man.
If he's throwing up MVP numbers, guess who else is?
I know.
Yeah, and he's the quarterback, so that's not a bad thing. Okay, now on to the Gold Rush, and I've got a hodgepodge all over the place here for the Gold Rush. These are rapid-fire questions, and I want your reaction. Okay, all of Cincinnati is bummed that Ken Anderson and Willie Anderson didn't get in the Hall of Fame. You've been writing about the Bengals and Reds now for
6 years.
6 years. Do you have a Hall of Fame vote?
I will in 4 years for the Reds, or for MLB.
Okay. How would you go about getting that for the NFL?
This is not an expertise of mine. There's a board of 50, which includes one representative from every city, plus 20 national types, plus some of those other 20 are like Bill Polian's one of those.
Yeah.
Butch Hobson is the Cincinnati guy. There are a lot of other qualified people who, whenever, 30 years from now, when Butch retires, hopefully they get that opportunity to become the Cincinnati guy on that board.
But once you're 10 years in the Baseball Writers Association, you're in. You vote for MVP.
I already vote for MVP.
Oh.
I vote for one of MVP or Cy Young every year.
But you don't vote for Hall of Fame yet.
I don't vote for the Hall of Fame
That'll
until
happen
year 10.
year 10. Okay. You take that honor seriously?
Would you like to see the color-coded spreadsheet?
I would, actually. We'll do that after the show. What do you think of, and again, I know you don't have a great take on Ken and Willie getting in. A lot of people think he should be. I think they both should be. We'll see what that happens eventually. What do you think about people being transparent with their votes? Because right now the big one is Sam Monson, who didn't vote for Drake May or Matthew Stafford. He voted for Justin Herbert, and it's gone completely nuclear on Twitter. The skeptic in me is saying it's a guy trying to get some attention. Maybe.
I don't know.
What do you think about the transparency?
I don't know Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know what his deal is. Seriously, I just don't know. I've seen examples where there are people who I see do a certain thing with their vote, and I see what's going on there. They're trying to get that attention. I am all in for these being made public because that promotes accountability and in a hidden secret process. Gotcha. I'm gonna get you. You can't do that when your name's on it in the same way, or else you lose some respect. And again, I don't know about the Herbert situation, but usually you see when it's a writer who's doing it for the wrong reasons, they get exposed and called out and kind of take a hit. And when you're doing it for the right reasons and you back it up, you earn some respect.
Cool, quick story here. I'll never have a vote for the Hall of Fame or MVP, anything like that, and I'm okay with that. I don't put in the work the way you do analyzing this stuff, and I don't feel like I would be responsible with the pick.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I know.
Be one of the better
that's
ones.
disappointing.
Yeah.
That's disappointing to me. I think it really should be to people like you who do make spreadsheets, who do care about this kind of thing. Greg Horde, rest his soul, I used to work with him here at Channel 19. He was a member of the Baseball Writers Association because before he did TV, he was a writer, and he would get the Hall of Fame vote. And I was a young kid working in the business. He would let me fill out his Hall of Fame ballot for him. Now, he made the picks.
Yeah.
He just told me what to write, but being 22, 23 years old, doing that was like the coolest thing a kid could ever do. So I always hang on to that. That'll be the closest I ever get to doing a Hall of Fame. Maybe you'll let me do the same. Maybe not.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, it's all digital now. And I know.
Well, I can push the mouse for you, okay? I can click the mouse. I'll be right there with Charlie. Okay, Super Bowl weekend. Who wins the Super Bowl?
I think the Seahawks are unbelievable. And the problem is teams are going to try to replicate this. And I think the Bengals should try to do the whole fine in the jar slot safety thing that the Seahawks. But you cannot, I'm not comparing Mike McDonald to Bill Belichick. But like every time you saw someone try to replicate the Patriots way, it failed.
Yeah.
That Seahawks defense, that is Mike McDonald. That is his brain that no one else can match. And I hope that when they win, that gets a lot of attention for just how special he and that scheme are and how you can't replicate that.
I'm with you. I say Seahawks because of the defense and because of the run game. They've done a great job of keeping Kenneth Walker fresh all year long. People are like, why is Zach Charbonnet getting the ball so much? My fantasy football team. This is why, because when you get to the playoffs and Kenneth Walker is a weapon, if you give him the ball 17, 20 times, he's going to break off 2 or 3 big plays. Breaking news coming from Charlie's pocket. No, it's probably just his brother.
Tony and Austin just asked me for my hot takes on the Super Bowl, if I had any bold predictions or anything like that.
Hit me.
I came up with them on the spot. I was proud of them. Seahawks defensive touchdown from a defensive back. And don't make me pick one. And Cooper Kupp MVP.
Whoa! Cooper Kupp MVP. Yeah, because his first one was Super Bowl 56.
He still got it.
I think Jackson Smith-Njigba wins the MVP just because, like I said, Sam Darnold will spam him.
I think the Patriots' corners are just good enough
that's a good point.
To make them go to your second
Great
progression.
Point, but I like that bold pick there. This is not a betting show, but take with what you will what Charlie just said. Okay, the Winter Olympics, do you like?
I love that others like them. Something in my life is that, something you should know about me, is that if I didn't grow up with it, like I
don't like it.
So like hockey, snowboarding, skiing. I didn't grow up with it. And I'm like that with movies. I'm like that with food. I'm not a Winter Olympics guy, but I'm excited that so many people are excited about it.
I can't wait for hockey. Hockey's awesome. We have a handful of local folks who are in the freestyle skiing, doing like the aerial tricks. So I've gotten into that a little bit. I don't know if you know the name Nick Gepper. He's in his 4th Olympics. So he's become a bit of a local celebrity. But there's 2 other guys that'll have a chance to bring home some medals representing the Cincinnati area. So I'll have an eye on that. My obscure favorite sport, everybody's into curling. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to watch curling. I watched 3 minutes of it. I'm like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. But bobsledding is awesome. I love bobsledding. I'm a big Cool Runnings guy, man. You ever see the movie Cool Runnings?
I have.
Yeah, you have seen it. Okay. So you grew up with it. You should like bobsledding.
Now, I would one day love to cover an Olympics.
Yes.
Because I love the experience. Like, for example, in college, I covered a year of lacrosse. Just for the experience of being in a completely foreign, just from, I don't know, lacrosse environment, and the fun of just being curious. Like, how fast is a fast shot? Like, I remember I did a whole story about that on the lacrosse beat. Like, stuff like that, you could go all in with. Like, I would love to cover, like the luge, like, or the whatever, the curling. Like, I would find something being there that would be a really cool story to tell.
Olympics, World Cup are my top 2 that I haven't done, would love to do. By the way, speaking of lacrosse, Pat Spencer.
Yeah, big game.
Starting for the injured Steph Curry, 20 points and a comeback win for the Warriors on the road at the Suns.
I'd like to tell you I saw it coming, but I didn't.
I saw it coming.
Yeah.
They want to play Brandon Pajimski. I say put in Pat Spencer. He's done, though.
Yeah.
His 2-way contract is finished. So he can't play again the rest of the year. What a bummer, because I love Pat Spencer. What a great story. Charlie will tell you about it if you ever see him. Last one, in the Gold Rush, do you like snow?
Yeah,
You don't drive much.
Yeah, I do. Let me tell you about what I did. So I'm very proud of this. My parents, they're great. They have 2 dogs who are great, Sunny and Tiny. Sunny and Tiny's scared of the snow. So there's snow in the backyard.
Yeah.
What are they supposed to do? So I made a maze, and now they just run laps all around the maze, and they have so much fun.
Stop it.
And they're so happy running around the maze, and I'm very proud of
Did you go up high to get an aerial shot of your maze?
There is no high shot.
You can't get on the roof? Don't go on the roof,
It's
Charlie.
too steep. That roof's too steep.
Okay, before we say goodbye and send Charlie off to spring training, we will finish with the Gold Nugget. This is Charlie's segment of the show. A great story he's working on, a great interview he's done. What do you have for us in the Gold Nugget this week?
It's my segment, so I'd like you to tell us more about Stretch and your feature on him. I had no idea he was from Cincinnati.
It's an unbelievable story. Okay, so John Stryker, I'm sitting at my desk about a week ago. I get a text from Brian Hunterman. Brian Hunterman, for Reds fans, he directs a lot of Reds games that you watch on TV. He's an Oak Hills guy, sends me a text. He said, did you know there's an Oak Hills grad who's on the staff for New England? I'm like, you're kidding me. He sends me the guy's name. I started researching him. John Stryker, okay, went to Oak Hills, played basketball. Never played football. Didn't play middle school, didn't play in high school. Loves Ohio State football, goes to Ohio State, says, I want to try to become a student manager. Now, his dad coached a season of college football at Miami with Jim Tressel. So he calls up to Ohio State and says, hey, Tress, can you do me a solid and give my kid a chance as a student manager? He does 3 years as a student manager. They love him. He'll do anything, right? He's the kid who will mop the floors. He gets a sleeping bag and sleeps inside the defensive room closet. Literally a true story. They make him an intern. He meets Mike Vrabel. He and Mike Vrabel become friends. Mike Vrabel thinks this guy's got some special qualities. His path goes college. He goes Ohio State for 6 years, James Madison, Texas State. Mike Vrabel gets a head coaching job in the Tennessee Titans. What does he do? He calls John Stryker and says, I want you to be my right-hand man. Now, here in Cincinnati, Doug Rossfeld, that's Zach Taylor's guy, right? He's like his chief of staff. He does everything, right? He helps handle the day-to-day. He's the guy with the challenge flag. He's got some analytics, some strategy, that kind of thing. That's what John becomes. He becomes the analyst, the operations, the strategy guy for Mike Vrabel. Vrabel loses his job. So where does he go? I mean, you think about all the smart coaches in the NFL. Sean McVay calls him. I want that guy. Sean McVay brings him in to help him with strategy, late game scenario kind of stuff. Vrabel gets the job back in New England. He brings in John Stryker, gives him a promotion, says, you're my guy. You do everything. And here he is, the right-hand man. So on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, when Mike Vrabel's making calls on his headset about strategy, about throwing a challenge flag, about when to use timeouts, he's talking to John Stryker. This guy, you'll love this guy. This could be you, by the way. John Stryker, after the Patriots play, goes into a hole, and he watches every single snap of every NFL game that weekend, and he looks for moments of great strategy, stuff guys are using, mistake coaches are making, and then he presents it to the team every single Friday before the game of, here's what we can do, here are the moments, the strategy of how to work this scenario, situational football, and here are mistakes people made in situational football and don't do these. He does that every single week. It's an unbelievable story, a fascinating story, and a reminder that no matter what you want to do, you can do it.
Yeah.
The guy never played football. What's the percentage of people who are on staffs in the NFL, coaching or otherwise, that have never played football? It's got to be minuscule.
Yeah.
So the path for him eventually is to become a GM.
And so I knew who he was just because
I
of
had
all
no
this
idea.
stuff. And because I knew he was kind of in that GM pipeline. And then I didn't realize he was from Cincinnati.
So his nickname's Stretch.
Yep.
Last nugget here. I mean, he's 6'8", so you understand the stretch. But his dad's nickname was Strike to Jim Tressel. So he shows up on campus, and Jim Tressel is calling him Strike. Terrell Pryor, who was the quarterback at the time, thought they were calling him Stretch. So he started calling him Stretch. And because the players were doing it and he was so tall, it has stuck ever since.
And so he was in Tennessee as well. And sorry, they messed up this one. The story that I think no one has told that should be, and I won't get that chance, but Tennessee against the Bengals in the playoffs.
He was there.
The worst situational football I've ever seen was Tennessee in the final 2 minutes of that game. The Patriots are the best situational football team I've ever seen this year. I am very curious how much of within that staff, there was a come to Jesus reflection, change the process, oh, we're going to do this differently now. And I would bet that there's a game they won because of a correction they made.
No doubt.
Based on how they managed the last 2 minutes against the Bengals. That, to me, is the story no one has done during the Super Bowl week, is what Mike Vrabel learned from his worst moment.
Last 2 minutes, 1 seed, tie game, and boom, the one thing they can't do, throw an interception. They threw the interception. That was a fun segment. Thanks for teeing me up for that. Okay, so Charlie is off to Arizona to cover the Reds at Red Spring Training. Again, Jeremy and I will join him a week later, but Charlie will have Fox 19 covered starting Monday at Red Spring Training in Goodyear, Arizona. We'll see you next time on The Gold Standard.